Hello out there. Welcome to our podcast today. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron, the source. EJ, today's subject. We're going to call this championship mentality. And the subject is going to be discipline. What does discipline look like? I think athletes think they're disciplined,
Right. Right.
but aren't really as disciplined as they should be, or maybe it's not manifesting itself in the way that it needs to be. And so I guess my opening salvo would be, well, before I do that, if you guys also want to look at a I guess what you call a corresponding
Podcast.
podcast of this, we also did another championship mentality where we talk about emotions. Okay.
Mhm.
So I wanted you guys to know about that one as well. But back to this one. Discipline. I just find that athletes give a cursory kind of check to some of the things that they're doing and are not really deep diving into what they should be doing, how they should be doing it, and being consistent, if any of that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I define discipline a lot different than what I see my athletes define.
Right.
Maybe that's just the Virgo perfectionist in me. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that and maybe give kids a better definition of what it should look like and how it should manifest itself as it pertains to being an elite level athlete.
Well, I like the way you start that off. It gets me to think about this thought. We're going to deep dive into this, but I think athletes these days think showing up is discipline.
Yes, that's the first check.
Yeah, I think that's just that's my initial thought is just to get people to open their eyes, athletes, parents, whatever. Showing up is just not good enough. You
Right.
just can't just show up and go through the motions and, oh yeah, I've been coming there and I've been spinning and I've been sweating a lot and I feel good and you know, but where does that really get you if you're not disciplined at what you're trying to do, and you're trying to get to a certain point or spot in your development. And I think discipline is part of your development. It's part of your training regimen.
Right.
How disciplined are you and what does it mean? That's my opening thought right there. What does it mean to be disciplined?
Yeah. And I'm glad you started like that because it gave me a minute to write down some thoughts that also I got bombarded with. Um, but I to kind of go off of your point, um, I think most athletes define discipline as just an act, like you said, showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I did the reps that were prescribed.
Right.
I ran the laps that I was supposed to run. But discipline is a mentality.
Mm-hmm.
It's your approach. How did you do those things? Did you do them the way that they were supposed to be done? Did you execute them? Did you do them at the time that you're supposed to do, or did you just rush through them? Um, I think that's where the difference lies, is that you've got to have an approach and like I said, in a mentality that really allows those disciplined acts to work for you.
Right.
For instance, I have an athlete, guys, talented athlete, but he's not disciplined. And here are some examples how he's not disciplined.
Okay.
Always on the phone,
Mm.
always checking the phone between reps, between sets, can't put the phone down. Another thing, doesn't show up in the gear that to me denotes a disciplined athlete is ready to train in. Shows up in skate shoes, wears pajama bottoms to training. You know, so there's a sort of, you know, you have to, if you
Right.
want to be a soldier, you have to wear the uniform of a soldier.
Right.
You know, that
Exactly.
because that puts you in a certain mental state, and it all feeds into that level of discipline that you have to be able to be what you want to be. You know, I had a saying, you know, one of the athletes asked me, you know, why do you wear, you know, the same thing to practice or your, you know, training every day?
Uh,
I said, because athletes wear uniforms, they don't wear outfits.
you
And
said
and to me, part of being disciplined and getting in that mindset that, hey, I'm going to work, this is what I'm going to do, part of that is that switch is turned on just by putting on the right shoes, putting
yeah.
on the right sweats, putting on the right, you know what I'm saying? Putting
Right.
all those things together that allow me to do my job better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get these kids who come in wearing any, you know, old things, especially when they first start, because as soon as they come in, I say, hey, look, that's not going to fly. It's not going to fly.
Right. I get
But
that.
but I have to tell them that what I'm trying to do is get them to understand before even they walk in my doors
Mhm.
that there should be a mindset that's, you know, in place so that when you start our activity, it carries over into a much more productive, you know, workout session. I even had I had to talk to a mom earlier this year about the kids showing up in like dress clothes, you know. I'm like, he's like showing up in beachwear, you know, and I'm like, no, you can't
Oh, that's
do that.
not
Just
working.
because you can work out and move in these clothes, it doesn't set the right mental space
Right.
for training.
Yes.
And it is so funny because these kids will sometimes leave, you know, $200 pairs of shoes, $100 bag, you know, leave all that stuff at home or have it for their sport, but they won't bring that same sort of seriousness to their training.
Right.
And my discipline athletes, you know, they have a kit. And if they don't, I talk about it. Say, look, you should have a workout bag, you should have your water bottle, you should have, you know, your snack. If you're an older athlete, you should have your protein, you know, all of those
Right.
things. And you travel with those and you pack those, you have them with you, and that's your kit. And
Right.
I think because, you know, what I do has become so mainstream and it's kind of matter of fact, it's
Yeah.
just like they just show up. And it's like I have 18-year-old athletes showing up and they don't bring any water. I'm like, well, what if I didn't have a water fountain here? You know what? All of those things to me are levels of discipline,
Hmm.
you know, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, it may seem like it's nitpicky, but like I said, I think, you know, you have to be in a proper mindset when you go to practice, when you go to work out. And part of that is discipline. And part of that discipline means being ready for the activities you're about to do and not just showing up.
Right. And Logan Franson, now
Mhm.
strength performance coach for the Texas Rangers in the big leagues now, but
Mhm.
probably right now you know about this, probably it's coming up pretty soon. Um, but I'm gonna tell you this. He said this to me years and years ago. He says, EJ got to be about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, be about it. That's interesting. And he mentioned this, and I start, thinking, wheels are turning. He's talking about showing up, being ready to go, having the right gear on, right mindset. He says all this stuff. I start laughing. I go, yeah, you definitely been around all of us for a long time. But he said that. And what made me really, you said something that kind of triggered something. I've seen you do this in the gym. You're drinking fountain over there. And remember, you're trying to get these athletes in the right mindset. Bring your water bottle. And you said, hey, listen, you can't drink out of that, man. You got to have a water bottle to fill up your water. You're just kind of setting the tone of these are my tools of my trade. This is how I'm going about it, and be ready to go. And it's funny when I see all of your athletes come in now, because you're speaking of some kids kind of just out there just learning the process. But I see all your athletes walk through that door, man, they're just like bam. And I even heard a couple parents of mine while I'm in back hitting with a couple athletes who aren't working with you, and they come in as these athletes, God, you see their eyes, you see their determination, you see how focused they are. I said, yeah, that's called game speed, man. That's game speed training. That's the mentality you need to have, the discipline you need to have to come in here and go to work. And that's discipline. When everyone in the gym comes in and they're just like set, they're kind of like those horses that run around the track and they get the blinders on, they're going around and going around because they are tuned in to their trade or what they're trying to do to get better. So parents out there, athletes out there, you're listening, have that discipline to come in and know what to wear, the gear. It's kind of like a warrior goes out to battle, and I've got my sword, I've got my, shield, and I've got my plate of armor, and I'm ready to go. You got to have your armor, you got to have your shield, you got to have your sword, you have to have all that in order for you to accomplish that. So I'm glad you mentioned that early on, because I think that's lacking in everything. People ask me all the time, Aaron, hey, why do you make you guys wear baseball uniforms, the same baseball uniform to practice? Why do they always have to wear the same uniform? Because that's part of our discipline. That's part of us being a
Right.
team. That's part of our armor, our code. Why do you have to have the same hat on? Can't they just wear that? I said, no.
Yeah.
I'm teaching them a mindset, a discipline they need to have to be ready to go to battle, to train.
Right.
And it's not warming up. It's
Mhm.
training.
Right.
It's training and discipline. In order to train, you need to have discipline.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, that discipline should permeate, all aspects of your life.
Okay.
So we always talk about management and how you're managing your life. And one of the biggest things we talk about in being a champion or having a championship mentality is consistency.
Right.
Your ability to do the work the way it's supposed to be done over and over requires discipline. So you can't be consistent without discipline. And, so that means even at home, you've got to be disciplined to do the things that you need to do. So
Right.
it's not just an aspect of, okay, well, I'm going to game speed, I'm going to be disciplined now, or I'm going to practice with EJ, I'm going to be disciplined now. No, it's got to permeate all of those things, in your life. And no, I don't necessarily a nitpicker sort of thing, but you do have to be able to sweat the small details too. And sometimes, people kind of fly by wire and just say, that's good enough, that's close enough.
Right.
That doesn't always fly when it really comes down, to crunch time. All the little things that you didn't do generally come out when there's pressure.
Yes.
And so you've got to
Mhm.
you have to be disciplined enough to be doing the little things routinely, so that when that you are under pressure, you don't falter because you didn't do some of the littler aspects or didn't pay attention to some of the little aspects. It's kind of like, I don't know, every time I talk about this, I think of, just handwriting in general. And it's funny because I think Newsom, I don't know why I keep quoting Newsom, but he did, I thought he did something where he mandated cursive writing back in schools again.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm a fan of that because it's not cursive. I don't, I'm not a fan of cursive writing just for, the look of it and the
Right.
artistry of it. But cursive writing requires a level of focus and discipline. Don't you remember as a kid, you used to have to write all the A's and you'd write the little A and the
Right.
big A
Yeah.
over and over again. Then you'd write it in a word. And that made you stop, slow down, focus, and do it correctly. Well, that's discipline.
Mhm.
And nowadays, with electronics, most people don't have to write. I mean, I don't know about you, but since I got out of college and now most everything is on the phone, how well do you write anymore? How well do you spell anymore?
Right.
you know,
Right.
because we grew up with a lot of that stuff where we had to be disciplined, for people to understand what we wrote down and and we did it manually versus typing. And we
Right.
didn't have all of these short case, I guess, enunciations or spellings,
Right.
words. I mean, I'm guilty of this. It's like, I'm texting and
Right.
how many times do I put LMK versus let me know?
Exactly. Let me know.
So, I mean, we're all guilty of it, and it's just the world that we live in. But
Right.
I also think we've got to take a step back and say, well, hey, how is this affecting my communication, my
Mhm.
learning, my thought processes? So now, instead of taking the time to write something out or express yourself uh, with more words or better, we're using these short terms and
Sure.
sorts of things to kind of skate by, and that changes, I think, our mentality. So because we're always
Yeah.
in this hurry up type of mentality and we're doing things fast and we're multitasking and we're never really putting on the brakes, being
Hmm.
thoughtful in what we're doing, and we're not presenting as good a product,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. It brings up a lot of things I've been watching or looking at lately, or I see stuff. And the shortcut thing you said, like we take these, whether it's spelling or anything, when you write out your name, Aaron, and it takes time. If you go Aaron Thigpen or you go Eric Johnson and you write out cursive, it takes time. That takes discipline. That takes discipline. That takes time. It's not a rush thing. I watch guys sign autographs these days, professional athletes, and they don't know how to write in cursive. They're doing everything and printing everything out, and their name, it's so different. And I saw something the other day, I think it was on YouTube. Tiger Woods was talking about, how did you get to be so good? He goes, you know what? It just takes discipline, takes hard work. You got to put the time in, the effort, and you have to show up every day and put the same effort in. He says, when I get ready for a golf tournament, I got to make 1,000 contacts a day, whether it's putting, chipping, going to the range, sand shots, whatever, putting, chips. He says, if I make 1,000 contacts, then I know I'm ready. And he's, whatever that means too. He says it's 1,000 contacts. I could go 600 putts, 300 chips, and 100 swings in the range. But it's that discipline of having, and you said earlier, a plan, but being really dedicated towards that. And that takes time, Aaron. It's not a shortcut. And I think when you get to discipline, I always think that discipline allows you to have longevity. Discipline allows you to be focused. Discipline allows you to get to your goal faster and understand how you get to your goal. So when you get off track, you have some sort of roadmap that you took to get there and you can revert back to it, But when you take a shortcut or you don't have any discipline, then you're always searching for the next, magic rub of the bottle for the genie to come out and help you.
Yeah. Magic
And
beans.
yeah, the magic beans. I love that. The magic beans of doing it. And discipline for an athlete's everything. It allows you to make adjustments.
Right.
If you're disciplined, you can make adjustments and believe in the adjustment, not search for it and go, where do I go next?
Right.
Where am I happy? Do I need to go over here? And maybe that's the answer. And that's what when Tiger Woods said that maybe have all these thoughts, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about it today, but you have to work.
Yeah.
You have to put in the time, effort, and all that is wrapped into discipline.
Right. No, I think you wrapped it up just great. I mean, the only thing I'd probably add to that is athletes understand that with discipline, you have to have patience, like you said. But with discipline comes consistency.
Mm.
And with consistency comes performance. And performance is what keeps you on the track, keeps you on the court, and keeps you on the field. And it all ties in. And that takes no physical ability. It's just a decision.
Mm.
Discipline is a decision. And I just, urge those athletes to make that decision early and stick with it.
Well said, Aaron. And that's going to wrap up what we're talking about today. So, hey, this is Coach Eric Johnson, known as Coach EJ, the brand.
This is Coach Aaron, the source. Don't forget to hit that like button, send a comment, and we'll see you.